So Man United win 2-0 against Fcsb to get instant qualification into the latter stages of the Europa League, finishing third in the group and going unbeaten in Europe this season. There's a lot of positives from today, right, that Amram can take into future games. And of course, on the other side, there are going to be a lot of things that he's learned positionally. The most important thing today was to get through in that top 8 and not have to play the playoffs. You've seen Amram say countless times, we've not had enough time in training. We need more time in training to ingrain the philosophy into the players. And actually, while I thought the philosophy is starting to come through, it's going to be so helpful not having to play those playoff games and give us more time in training. And I think today, mission successful. That's all we needed to do, was finish in that top 8, no matter how we did it, finish in the top 8 and get more time on the training pitch to ingrain this philosophy and work from there. So well done to the boys for doing that. Today, we were just professional. We ground out the game in the first half, just made sure that we were not letting them have any of the ball. And in the second half, we really went out there and you could tell Amram was like, right, okay, we've kept them at bay in the first half. We've understood them now. Let's just go for it in the second half, which you saw with his half-time substitutions. I feel like I should start with some positives of the game because there were a lot of positives to take. For example, Mainoo. Mainoo, easily by far my man of the match today. I've been very critical of Mainoo this season. I loved him last year, but I thought everything that was good about him last year, he's kind of suffered from this year. Obviously, he had an injury at the beginning, but he's looked leggy, he's looked tired, he's looked like he can't string a few passes together. Last season, you couldn't get the ball off Mainoo, but he's looked easily tackleable this season. And when he passes the ball off, he's not spraying passes left, right and centre. He's kind of sloppily getting a first touch that's laying it off onto the opposition. But today, putting him into that 10 position, I know a lot of people were saying it before the game that maybe he is better in those higher up spaces. He's always been better. I remember back in the Euros of the summer, always better in those much more forward spaces than defensively thinking. And that decision from Amram to put him in the 10 was, I think, inspired. Obviously got his goal and assist, but that was a product of the game he played. He was constantly in the game, constantly getting the ball, driving it forward, laying it off, or being in the right areas to receive a ball from either flank. Really, really, really professional, good performance from Mainoo today. And I'm excited to see more of him in that 10 position if that's what Amram thinks he's going to do with him. And again, this is a player that can drop deeper if he has to. If we have a game where we want more solidity in the back, if Toby Collier's not working, because I think today, I'll get onto him, but he was a bit of a rock in that midfield. I know he came off at half-time, but Mainoo also provides a bit of defensive stability at times. But I think he's a player that needs to be allowed to get much more forward. He always does his best work. I think FA Cup final, I think, again, Euros, he always does his best work when he's higher up, in and around the box. And I think he did that excellently today. And if we look at his partner for most of the game today, Eriksen, I'm very on and off with Eriksen. I think, look, if he had legs, if he was fit and a physical player, I think we'd have a great squad player on our hands. He's so good at receiving the ball and just finding a way to get the ball into the box or in and around the area. His eye for a pass is sublime, but he doesn't have the physicality to compete at the top level, which is why against a team like Fcsb, you see him do his best work. But in the Premier League, coming against the likes of a Rodri or a Rice or any kind of top centre-back is just going to shut him down immediately, which is a shame because I think technically Eriksen is a wonderful player, but it's a shame. I think we probably got him a few years too late. And we saw that in the second half, right? When Garnacho came on, Eriksen dropped a bit deeper and that midfield became a lot more open than it was in the first half. Obviously, Fcsb, they didn't have a lot of chances to get forward, but when they did break, it was very easy for them to get from their own penalty box to ours because that midfield of Bruno and Eriksen just didn't work. You need to have an Agate or a Collier in that midfield or a Mainoo, but that Bruno and Eriksen midfield, even towards the end of the game, Casemiro, you need legs in the midfield. You need physicality, robustness and legs in the midfield, and dropping Eriksen deeper, I think that was a Ten Hag thing. Ten Hag playing Casemiro and Eriksen in his first year. I think we're way beyond having Eriksen being in the pivot because we've learned it just doesn't work. And I know he's gone in the summer, so this isn't much of a point, but I do think we should focus on his positives. Again, creatively, very, very, very technically gifted player. Now, I will mention a bit of a negative in our fullbacks. I think in the first half, Dalot and Malacia, that was a mess. A mess of a fullback pairing. You can't have Dalot on the right, which, to be fair, in the first half I was thinking, what's happened to this guy? Last season, one of our most consistent players, consistently playing a 7 out of 10 game, just solid, like getting forward, getting back and defending. Every facet of the game, you know, I mentioned the other day, he's not spectacular, but he's not spectacular at anything, but he's solid and good at everything. But this season, he's been completely off it, and having him on the right and Malacia on the left, honestly, Malacia is not a footballer at this level. I don't know who decided to sign him. I mean, Ten Hag was thinking back up to Shaw, fine, but he's just not a good footballer at this level. You think it's so simple to get the ball, drive it forward and put a cross in. Never does it. Never looks for the early cross, which is what a wide player is supposed to do. You get the ball, you give the early cross in, and the opposition defenders just don't know what to do with an early cross. What are they supposed to do when he gets the ball and he crosses it? They don't have time to think about positionally where they need to be, who they need to mark. And that's what the wide players need to be doing. Both Dalot and Malacia are shocking at getting forward and putting an early cross in. They just can't do it. And you saw Malacia at one point in the game did get the ball and do an early cross, and the defenders panicked. There was no one to receive it on the other end, but it went into acres of space, which if there was a player there, easy goal. You see when it happens, it works. And I think that's what Amorim wants. He wants the fullback to get forward, get a pass outside the box, early cross, and then you have a Højlund, a Mainoo, a Bruno, whoever, to be on the receiving end of it. I think that's what Amorim's trying to do here. And I think because of that, I think in an ideal world, Amorim wants to have those wide players being the creative outlets. But because of that, because they're just not good enough, and yeah, Dalot got his goal today, fair play to him. It was a good goal. Mainoo, again, brilliant assist. But I think because the wide players aren't putting the early cross in, we're relying on players like Martinez to do it. We're having Martinez bomb on, playing in that kind of like left half space, driving the ball into that left half space. You saw that goal against Fulham, and today he tried to do the same thing, I reckon, 7 or 8 times. He got the ball in that area, either took a shot or tried to cross it in. His eye for a pass is just phenomenal. It's no wonder Amorim's trying to get the ball to him, but it shouldn't be the centre-back's job to be one of our most creative players. It should be on the wide players and the inside players. And I think, to be fair, I'll get on to Garnacho, but Mainoo and Garnacho as that upper midfield two, that inside two, I think that's a very solid attacking midfield too. I just think the wide players need to be better, and hopefully that's what Adorgu will fix, or at least contribute to fixing, because he's a very creative player, very creative and attacking minded. So hopefully that's what Dorgu's going to do, is just provide, because I think we do have threat in the more inside and compact areas. I think once we get that on the width as well, we're going to be such an unpredictable team. If we can get the ball to anyone in the front five, and a defender's not going to be able to know how to deal with that. I mentioned Collier earlier. Very good minutes for Collier today in Europe. I think that was predetermined, him coming off at half-time before the game. You know, he's played halves here and there. He's played a few games recently. He's been playing more football than he's used to. This is a side where in the first half we were very compact and we were like, look, let's keep possession and, you know, have a few attacks but just keep the ball. And that's what Collier's good at. Collier's a good player to have when you want to keep the ball. And then when you want to get up the pitch and get more attacking, that's why you bring on an Amad and Garnacho. And I think, actually, to be fair, Amad had one of his poorer games in a United shirt today. I didn't really see him. I saw one moment of him towards the end of the game where he picked up the ball and tried to do what he did against Southampton, where he collects the ball and then tries to sort of slice it across goal. But other than that, I honestly could not tell you that Amad came on. Garnacho, on the other hand, now I have got to give huge credit to Garnacho, just for today and generally. This is one of my favourite players, so maybe a little bit of bias talking, but there's been a lot of criticism on Garnacho from the manager himself, dropping him against City, and then all the rumours that he's getting sold, people saying sell him for 40 mil, he's not good enough, you know, people mocking us wanting 60, 70 mil for him. This is a player that is 20 years old and is clearly so invested into learning about his game, about the system, about the philosophy. And you can see every game he is improving every single game, which is what you want from a player like this. I think towards the end of Ten Hag, Garnacho is a player that suffered from that kind of limp finish line to the end of Ten Hag. I think he didn't improve. He was the same player. He got complacent. He tried to do the same thing every game. But Amorim's come in and he's clearly inspired Garnacho to think, hold on, I'm 20. I'm not that guy yet. There's a lot more I can learn. There's a lot more I can do. And you can see every game, he's learning how to get into different positions and when to lay it off, who to lay it off to. He's not trying to take on players anymore unless he feels in a confident position to be like, okay, I'm going to take this player on. And when he does now, he takes him on with confidence and he usually beats his man. Whereas before, he was just sort of running down the byline and thinking, I'm just going to try and take on a man here, and he would fail. And I think you've just got to give him huge credit. This is a player that Amorim clearly wants to keep now. Probably was critical of him when he came in. In the same vein of Rashford, there have been things said about him, about his work ethic, about his complacency. But you can see in broad daylight that this is not a complacent player. This is a player that wants to play for Man United, wants to play for Amorim, wants to win things with United, and is so happy to learn and soak up the philosophy and the system of Amorim. And this is a player I don't think we need to sell anytime soon. If he's doing this 3 months into a system with Amorim, I'd say he is one of the only players, and actually Amorim said this himself, that Garnacho wants to learn the philosophy, wants to learn the system. And you can see he is one of the only players right now, along with maybe the back three. He's one of the only players that is thinking, right, this is what my manager wants me to do. I am going to do it. He understands the system, what everybody else's role is, and he understands his own role. Getting into certain spaces, putting crosses in, the creativity he was showing today, the positions he was showing himself in. Honestly, I can't give enough credit to this lad. I think he is going to be one of our best players in the future. I've always said that, and I'm very happy. Today especially, I think the last couple of games he's shown that he is improving under Amorim, that Amorim can trust him. But today especially, I was just watching him thinking, fair play. You've got so much distraction on you. People saying you're not good enough. People, a lot of reports saying you're up for sale. He'll know he's up for sale. The manager not necessarily trusting him at the beginning of his tenure, but he's blocked out all of that. He's not an arrogant player. You can see in broad daylight that he's not an arrogant player. He's a player that wants to learn, wants to adapt, and wants to be successful with Man United, and I cannot knock that. Again, for one of my favourite players already to be having that mindset in a team that's struggling, I love him. I love him, and I really hope he continues what he's doing. I'm just begging we get to, I think the deadline for the transfer window is Monday, so I'm still a little bit nervous that we're going to do something for FFP, but I don't care how much we're offered for Garnacho right now. You cannot sell a 20-year-old with that potential, with that willingness to learn. You just can't. And I'm just really hoping we get to Monday, the window closes, Dorgu comes in, and we can just at least have him for the rest of the season so we can prove this is not a player to sell. Amorim today, look, this is not an Amorim style of football. We're not playing the sporting Amorim style of football, but you've got to give fair play to Amorim. He said in his press conferences, look, we are maybe the worst team in Man United history. I am a part of that. I think he's realised that, look, he's not going to change. He's never going to change the 3-4-3. That's his philosophy. That's his system, and he's not going to budge on that, and he shouldn't. But he tweaks things within the game. He brings players on. He has people doing certain different roles where the formation is set solid, but I've been noticing he's been starting to tell the fullbacks to bomb on and put crosses on a bit more. Whether or not they do it, they're not really doing it, but you can tell he's telling them to try and do it. You can tell that the midfielders, I suppose, the two pivot midfielders are there to facilitate the attacking, be a link between the defence and the attack. You can tell he's telling Martinez, look, you're one of our most creative players right now. Get forward into that left half space and try and get the ball into the box somehow. He's learning about his players and he's adapting his system to the players he has. No doubt, when he has a transfer window, when he brings in his own signings, we're going to start to probably see that sporting system more. But at least I'm seeing a willingness from my manager to adapt his system slightly. Not to change it, not to just let the players win and do what they want. No, he's keeping his system, he's keeping his philosophy, but just adapting it to the players he has. And that's why I think this season we will be okay. I still think, personally, we're probably favourites to win the Europa League. And that's us going to be finishing probably 11th in the Prem and getting Champions League football. I think our whole focus needs to be on this Europa League. And I don't see, from what we're seeing over the last few games, last couple of games, if we can continue this trajectory, I don't see why we're not favourites. Tottenham were probably my favourites a few weeks ago. Not anymore. They are shocking. You have the likes of Lazio have done well. They could be a bit of a threat. I think Frankfurt have done all right, but they've just lost Marmoush. I can't see them being much of a threat. I do think it's probably between us and Lazio, and the only reason I say Lazio is because they're top of the table right now. But we're the only team that's gone unbeaten in this group stage, and I don't see why we can't go on and win this. We've got a lot of talented players. We've got a very talented manager. If we can just learn the system and carry on like this, then bring on the Europa League final, bring on Champions League football next year. I'm buzzing about today. I'm in a really good mood, which is rare for me after a United game. The last 2, 3, 4 months have been very tough to get through as a United fan, but I'm happy. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing. I'm seeing my manager want to win. I'm seeing my manager want to adapt the system. I'm seeing the players really. You can see the players are so dialed in to this manager and this system, and they would do anything for him. They'd die for him. A lot of these players on the pitch. I think of Ahmad. I think of Garnacho. I think of the defensive players. I think of the midfield players. I think they all, whether or not they're good enough, is a totally different conversation. A lot of these players aren't good enough, but you can tell there's such a willingness to do the best they can and to do what the manager's asking for them. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen a tactical manager that has managed to get the best out of these players in a system for such a long time. And I'm very happy. Let me know what you think in the comments. 2-0, unbeaten in Europe. I think there's a lot to be positive right now. There's a lot to be positive. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.